Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking with Klaus Dona from the Philippines. You may have remembered Klaus and I did lots of interviews, probably a dozen interviews over a number of years on my old website and my old radio show. But now I wanted to touch base with him, and somebody did their darndest to keep us from contacting each other for a number of years. So, Klaus, thanks for talking today, and we'll just bring people up to date.
Good morning, Steve, and good morning to your audience.
Thank you. Well, Klaus, you have pretty much tracked down the most out-of-place artifacts in the world. I don't think anybody has done the job you've done, and I say that with genuine compliments and genuine praise. So the thing is that our paths have crossed over the giants, and I don't think people understand how important this is to the history of the world. Obviously, you've been talking about it for decades. I have been talking about it, written about it. You've basically had not only expeditions around the world, but you've also had showings of your artifacts in Southeast Asia, etc. And the people out of this country seem to receive it way better than the United States or the mind-controlled archaeologists here. So can you just share it with the people? Nothing that would put anything in harm's way or anything, but can you share kind of what you're working on now?
I'm researching here hidden cities and the connection to Lemuria or to the continent Mu, where the official science definitely is not believing in it, but there are so many books written about it and research is done about the so-called continent Mu. And you know that they found archaeological sites in Indonesia, and the official age dating goes already far behind the so-called flood, the story of the flood, which means at least older than 12, 13, 14, and even 20,000 years old. And at the end of this month, we have a conference in the south of the Philippines. Several speakers are coming, also the scientists who are doing the archaeological work in Indonesia. And through the technology of a good friend of mine, we found hidden cities in the jungle of Mindanao. At the moment, it is not so safe to go there, but the conference is in a very safe area, and most probably the archaeological department will assist us in the south, in Mindanao, to look for those hidden cities in the jungle. And I'm quite sure that the age of these buildings and structures are also very, very old and might have, and I think they have, to a connection to the continent Mu. That's one of the story, but there are also so many stories here about giants and little people. And in a few days, we are visiting one riverbed with petrified, huge, giant human footprints and handprints. And there are also informations about giants in the size of about 15 to 17 feet found here in the north of the Philippines.
I was hired by the government of Sardar to dig up the skeletons of giants. We always carried the bones and the artifacts we found into the church,
so they would make the skeletons disappear. And the church was always involved because they didn't want people talking.
So we asked the priest, what are we supposed to do with the skeleton? And he said, break it into pieces and bury it under the foundation of the house.
I personally excavated 2 skeletons that were more than 10 feet tall.
happened with the Anasazi. A portal opened, a doorway, and the giants came up out of the earth.
It's almost like they were eaten on the run. This was the violent overthrow of the Anasazi. Tens of thousands of artifacts were carted off to the Smithsonian's repositories, including the bones of the giants.
At the turn of the 19th century, bodies of giants were turning up all over the United States. All over the island of Sardinia, there are massive stone sepulchres famed since time immemorial as tombs of the giants. Everywhere the megalithic towers stood, the tombs of the giants were close by. There may be tens of thousands of giants still buried in the soils of Sardinia today.
Giants are going to return to the earth, are going to rise from the dead.
There is a multi-billion-dollar black market for extractable DNA from the tissue and the bones of dead giants. The stage is now set for mankind to bring about the reemergence of the Rephaim. The enemies of God are about to become the architects of their own divine judgment.
Have you talked to people that have been into the caves where a lot of the giants were, basically hiding out, and basically some were entombed in the caves? Because aren't there just massive amounts of caves there?
There are an amount of caves in the mountains. I visited one already, but there is no skeleton or mummy inside. But the entrance, everything is in a very good condition, and it's from the megalithic time. That means it's thousands and thousands of years old.
Right. We're tracking all the megalithic cities of the world, and especially obviously in South America and in Europe, and headed into Romania and the Busegli Mountains. Have you gone there? Yeah. Have you been there?
No,
okay.
Sorry, I was far away many times from my country, from Austria, but never in the neighbor countries. So that's the next step I have to do, but not at the moment.
Are you finding that once the word gets out what you're looking for, are there people coming forward with information or eyewitness accounts? Do you have in the Philippines at this point any eyewitness accounts of people seeing giants in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Yes, but not living. Mummified, yes, and that's a very interesting story, which I'm now getting more and more information, and hopefully I might be able to see it. They found a giant mummified with a size of 15 feet, and this giant had also how you call it, jewelry, meaning a big breastplate made out of gold and gold chains and everything around it. And that remembered me on a video which I saw from Iran, where they found big giant mummified giants, also with treasure pieces, jewelry on them. And there's a connection also to Utah. They also found those mummified giants.
Right. I actually know Robert Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Yes. I tried to interview him, and at that point, about in October, Klaus, he didn't want to be seen on camera. He must have changed his mind, but he was gracious to give me those drawings about 5 to 7 years ago, maybe longer than that, of a king and a queen mummy seated on their thrones with the armor.
Yeah. And the same pictures I saw on video from Iran. And when I was last time in Austria, I met a German who has the connections to these people who have those giants. And I think in about 1 or 2 months he will be in Iran, and he will bring much more material, and he will give it to me. So the story about the Iranian king mummies, giant king mummies, as Michael Salah, he had a report about it, and they called him liar and crazy and everything like we are used to.
Yeah, you and I have been used to that for 20 years.
We are used to. We are crazy, yeah, of course. So wait until I get the material, and then I will send you also some photos, because they did not find only the giants. They found also up to 3,000 artifacts, and I saw already photos of those artifacts. Believe me, it's incredible. Incredible.
Are the giants that you're getting reports of, and the skeletons in the Philippines, are they 6 finger, 6 toe?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because it seems like those giants are specific areas, and there's a lot of giants that aren't, but it seems to me, just based on our mutual investigations, that the 6-fingered, 6-toed individuals pretty much came up out of South America. We're finding that, by the way, in the desert Southwest, the Four Corners region. We just met with some Native American elders down there, and they routinely, Klaus, and you'll be getting a copy of this video, the True Legends. You'll be able to download it on Vimeo on the internet. The idea is very interesting. They're claiming they're opening the stargates, and that the giants are telling them they're coming back. So it's kind of fascinating. We're talking about Native American elders. One of them's 80 years old, and he talks about they have a society of giants, and that they get together periodically at certain times a year and open the stargates and are literally getting information from the giants, who claim they're coming back from out under the earth.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. You remember when we talked years ago about Dr. Muldashev, and he went into the cave, and the giant, and this giant was in stasis, suspended animation?
Yes.
Yeah. And he's a scientist, so he wanted to see, and the monks told him he couldn't go beyond a certain point?
Nobody believed him also.
No.
Even he wrote the book. He is a very famous doctor. So he had a problem, and that's when he heard of the bones which I brought from Ecuador for research to Austria, of the 7.6 meter giant, which is close to 25 feet. He came to Vienna to visit me because he also needs some approval. And I think your research and my future research can help him to approve the giant really existed.
When he went into Lebanon, I think he went into the Baalbek region, Persepolis, and the Russian papers carried the picture of him and the giant footprints. Did he ever mention the underground civilization that was under the surface there?
No, not when I met him. No.
Okay. Well, at this point, have any of the people, since you're investigating Lemuria, Mu, have anybody also, or have any of the people you've come into contact with brought up Yonguni off of Okinawa? The Yonguni, the underwater pyramids, etc.?
You mean Yonaguni?
Yeah, I pronounce it different, yeah.
Professor Masaaki Kimura.
Right.
He's doing further research over there, and he found not only these structure, but also other structures under the sea level. So that means the steps there are also oversized. So that's why people say it could not be man-made, because the steps would be too big to move for normal people. But I think at that time also people might have been much taller than in our days.
Oh, yeah. Japanese. Same thing in Peru, Ollantaytambo, the Sacsayhuaman, some of those areas, the stairs. I mean, it has to be for an oversized individual. Same thing in Turkey at Nemrut Dağ, the steps are just not human-sized steps.
I can send you pictures from the megalith site I found here on the Philippines, also with big stone steps, which means oversized. So the story of the giants is reality.
We've searched our mutual research. I think I've been at this 40 years. You've been at it, I'm 65. How old are you now?
68.
Okay. Well, good. That's a good thing, because I'm younger and I can learn from my elder. But the thing is that, I see, and I think I would ask you, do you see a converging all this? Very soon, it's going to be undeniable that the giants were real, that the megalithic structures and the megalithic cities and monuments were all built by them. And what, you've had hassles. The authorities, have made it difficult for you at times. But how long will you guess it is? This is just a wild guess, Klaus. Nobody's going to hold you to it. But, it seems to me like things are building to a climax. I mean, there's going to be so many things found that they cannot deny it or excuse it away.
Exactly. I think it doesn't take much more time until the truth is out.
Right.
Because too many informations. As you did visit, you talked about Sardinia. There are other places all over the world. I mean, it's just, it waits until understood by even the scientists. Some of them, they believe, especially here, people are very open and they are willing to cooperate. And I think if we can get out some real findings from here, especially about the hidden cities, maybe they are connected with giants. And I just remember another thing, the so-called pyramid in Ecuador.
Yes, sir.
Manuel Palacios, he was in the jungle in the Yanganatis, and there's a stone structure which looks exactly like a pyramid. And he informed the government, and they sent out some archaeologists and geologists just for a few hours visiting the place, and they decided it's natural, so it's not a pyramid. So Manuel asked me if I can cooperate with him and ask my German friend with his technology, doing a scan over this area. And you know what we found? We found 3 pyramids, and they are connected with a huge underground tunnel system. That means in the jungle of the Yanganati, you have stone pyramids, and some researchers found oversized stone axes and stone working tiles, also exactly pointing out that giants lived there and were in connection with the pyramids. But then think about the age of it. If there lived giants, and especially in an area where today it's a wild mountain area and jungle, there are 3 stone pyramids. How built them? How many thousands of years ago? We are talking really about long, long time before. And that's one of the places I would like to go maybe at the end of this year or next year from the Philippines, because one gentleman, a very influential and important person of Ecuador, is willing to help me to do an expedition to the area and a real research on the spot. And I'm sure it's connected with giants again.
Yeah, it's all connected to giants. I don't know if Tim told you this, but do you remember Fawcett and his expedition to find El Dorado, or the lost city of Z in Brazil?
Exactly. Fawcett, yes,
Yep.
in the 1920s.
Yes, sir. Well, basically, there have been reports now, Klaus, of live, L-I-V-E, animate giants. But what's interesting, blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Now, why that's critical is there's only one place in Peru, okay, that has blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, or that genome, and that's in Chachapoya, okay? So, listen to this. And you know that there's over 125 people that disappeared in that area trying to find Fawcett after that. But according to legend of both El Dorado and what he called Z, the city of Z, the pyramids were coated in gold, okay? And so all the myths and legends, as you know and I know, they all go back to a golden age, pun intended, before. We're talking 20,000. We're talking maybe hundreds of thousands. For instance, the Sumerian Table of Kings, you've seen it. After the flood, normal king lives. Before the flood, Noah's flood, the biblical flood, there are guys that lived to be and reign for 60,000 years, and they were all giants, because those are the guys seated on the throne with the little people in front, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to get you to back up. Now, isn't it interesting? The giants are always in the same area as the little people. What's the size of the little people that you're investigating over in the Philippines at this time?
It's about a little bit over 1 foot.
1 foot?
Yeah.
And if I might put everybody in remembrance, Klaus was the one that broke the story about the Atacama little alien. And whenever you remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was already 2004.
2004. And so I wrote a book, Klaus, called Little Creatures, okay? And what I found, just like in Hawaii, they call them the Menhuni, there is no place on the planet that I've investigated giants that doesn't also have a corresponding legend and historic accounts of the little people.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of funny. You and I are now, again, 2 decades, maybe 3 decades into our mutual research. And on one hand, we're dealing with giants. And on the other hand, they can't deny the little people. I'm talking about people smaller than the hobbits in Indonesia, you know?
Yeah. That's what they are talking here. 1 foot.
Yep.
And there's a famous healer here in the town where I'm living now. And his sons told me that his father, their father, waked up them sometimes at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and brought them outside the house. And they could see little people marching on the road and playing with little instruments, music. And those people are real serious people. They are not dreamers or joking me. And many other people here in Luzon, in the north of the Philippines, are approving that they saw those little people. So that means they are still alive.
All over the world, when I wrote the book Little People, I could not find one area on one continent that where there were legends of giants, there were not also little people and little creatures, you know. And obviously the whole the British Isles of the, everything from leprechauns to fairies, whether people want to believe that or not. Now, obviously there's some hoaxes out there in the archaeology world, but it's fascinating. You're hearing that in Luzon in the Philippines, even in Montana. Yeah. I live in Montana, but in the mountains of Wyoming, there was a little creature called Pedro the Mountain Mummy. And until we start talking about Pedro, then guess what? A certain government agency came in and seized the mountain mummy, okay? So the different Native Americans have the different legends. They're different legends of the, the little creatures. Yeah. So how long ago was that encounter of the people seeing the little creatures, the healer?
Oh, that's not so long, a few years ago.
What's the strangest thing you've encountered in the Philippines since, how long have you been there now, a year?
No, it's about 20 months.
20 months, okay. But what's the strangest thing you've encountered to date, you personally?
That's for another day when the excavation here is finished. I'll let you know.
Okay. And please, you know how I work. Anything that you're comfortable with, share. Anything you're uncomfortable with, don't share. I've learned to, people say this to me too. Tell us what you really know. And my answer is, and you're free to use this, if you don't understand what I'm already telling you, what I would tell you won't help you, Because as there's so much, almost people, they can believe anything on science fiction shows on TV, but they struggle over the truth. They struggle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you also hearing, in the Luzon, this would be important, in the area that you're going to try and excavate or headed up into the mountains, are you seeing many connections to UFOs?
I heard many stories about, many.
And does it...
I personally didn't see yet anything like it.
But in the area that they're describing as being the pyramid area, are the UFOs typically located in that area, or is that what the people say? Or is it just broader than that?
Strange thing is that there are gold mines. They are gold mining in the mountains. And around this area, there are many of the sightings. And there are stories, legends that the Japanese buried amounts of gold here on the Philippines and all these stories,
Yeah, I used to get called by the people showing the same Marcos gold bar that, for 100,000, they'll cut me in on 100 million. Well, I'm here to tell you people that, that part of the story is false. I would guess that the United States and the occupation got whatever Marcos had hidden. But I'm talking about the old gold. The old gold. That's what you're talking about, too. Are you experiencing, when you go into the different areas, are you experiencing any form of electromagnetic phenomenon?
Oh, very strong one. There are 2 lines going through where I'm living now. They are very strong electromagnetic fields. Oh, these are the dogs. Sorry.
It's okay.
Our guardians and our best friends.
I got you. Well, again, are you saying to me that the magnetic ley lines are going through the area where you're at? Or, yeah. And in all the rumors that you've investigated and all the people you've talked to, what seems to be the tallest giant or the biggest skull? Because when Timothy Alberino was in Peru, they brought him into the library of old archives, the conquistadors, the 1570s, and they made the statement that a standard rapier, which is, I think has a 42-inch blade from the tip to the hilt, would go through the eye socket and just barely touch the back of the skull. Have you heard any stories of skulls that size?
No, not yet.
Okay. What happened? No. What happened to your Ecuadorian bones? Did somebody told me that? Did Eric von Daniken end up with those, or didn't you use?
No. Some of them I still have in Vienna in a security deposit, and when I go next time to Ecuador, I will bring them back to the family of Father Waka.
I got you. Are you seeing any more? Are you seeing anything in the Philippines that would be similar to the Ica or Ica Peru stones? Are you finding any engravings or any petroglyphs? Any strange? Go ahead.
At the end of this month, at the conference in Butuan in Mindanao, there are some private collectors from the Philippines attending, and they show their artifacts they found. And there are some stones with unknown writings, but I will see them, and we can make an interview after when I return from this conference. Then I can show you also some pictures with my computer, because today I'm talking on the iPad because I have a problem with my PowerBook. But when it is repaired, then I can also show you on Skype some pictures of real interesting artifacts from the Philippines.
Have you noticed any, the inscriptions you've noticed on all the different artifacts that you've located, reviewed around the world over the years? Are you noticing commonalities in the language or in the characters? I mean, everybody knows what Egyptian hieroglyphics look like, but not many people know what, we're talking about that go beyond like 20,000 years, before the flood.
Or more.
Yeah, by the way, 265,000 years is a Table of Kings. Some people say it's only 235,000. I just say this, round it off to 250,000 years of recorded history. And they, that's what I'm telling people. And they say, well, they moved the decimal point. Listen, the Sumerians were bright people. If they know how to plot the celestial coordinates, the constellations, and the movement of the earth and the movement of the heavens, I don't think they have a problem moving the decimal point. But what's interesting, at the point of Noah's flood, the universal flood, that's where the age, the longevity, absolutely stops, and then everything went into the 120 years or less. So the Table of Kings, Sumerian Table of Kings, is absolutely, in my opinion, authentic. The periods of the king's reign is authentic, and you can't claim that these are the brightest people in the world. No, somehow they made a mistake by moving their decimal wrong prior to a certain point in history. So, the thing that I'm interested in has the professor at Yonaguni, what's his name again? I'm sorry.
Masaaki Kimura.
Has he been able, from all of his dives and all of his investigation, has he been able to isolate any form of symbols or any form of geometric that would indicate a language?
Yeah, they found stone plates with symbols.
Okay.
And some of them are very similar with drawings from church work, in connection with the continent Mu. And also with Niven, with the symbols Niven found in the high valley of Mexico. Also on ceramic plates or natural plates or even stone plates.
Right.
But you asked me about the connection between some writings. That 2001, I had an exhibition in Vienna, the so-called Unsolved Mysteries. And I could present stones with writing engraved from Ecuador, from Colombia, from Illinois, the Burroughs Cave, from Clausel, France, from Australia. It's always the same writing. And the former president of the German Linguistic Society, Professor Schildmann, he could decipher these writings, and he wrote a book about those different artifacts found in different continents, in different countries, with always the same writing, which shows exactly that there must have been a global civilization or at least a global connection all around the world.
Right.
But in Clausel, the findings are officially fakes. In Illinois, Burroughs Cave is a fake. These stones from Colombia are fakes. So tell me, Steve, a very funny faker already before 1924, because the stones in Clausel were found around 1924. A wonderful faker made thousands of stones, engraves thousands of stones with an unknown writing, and travels from Colombia to Ecuador to Illinois to Europe, and puts them into hidden places and hopes that somebody finds them one day and get headache because he won't know what it is. No. I mean, those pieces are a proof of an unknown writing. And Professor Schildmann said he compared it. There are some similarities with the writings of the Easter Islands and also of the writings of the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-daro. There's a similarity. That means he called it, because he said it's older than the oldest writing, the Sanskrit. He calls this writing pre-Sanskrit. And they found stones with the same writing all over the world. Even they found in the so-called non-existing pyramids in Bosnia. There are scientific researches done since the last few years, and it's a proof that there are pyramids in Europe bigger than the Egyptian pyramids and not officially accepted by the official archaeologists. And even there is a big underground labyrinth, and they found also stones with very little symbols and writings. And for me, it has definitely a similarity with those other stones found all over the world. So even now in Bosnia, and I'm sure there are many, many more findings in the near future, because I think it's a very strange time. Now really the truth comes out fast and faster.
You know, interestingly enough, now, how did you say Dr. Sigmund?
No, Schildmann. Kurt is the first name, Kurt, Kurt Schildmann.
Is that book in German?
He was a German, yeah? And he passed away
a
few years ago. I beg your pardon?
I'm sorry, are there any English versions of that book?
You can find a part translation on internet, yes.
I'm sorry, Klaus, you broke up.
You can find on internet English translation.
Okay.
Just put into Google Kurt Schildmann.
I will do that. And, do you remember the title of it? Is it Universal Symbols, or what's the title on the...
No. Okay. I have his book.
Okay.
It was also written partly in German, partly in English, but not here at the moment.
We're tracking the universal pyramid structures around the world. Even in the Old Testament, it talks about the continents being separated in the days of Peleg, Gondwanaland and, the Super Pangea. So all of these pyramids, I mean, people don't get it. Even the people that say that, well, for instance, Powell, the head of the Smithsonian, believed in isolationism, when you and I know that everybody went every place on this planet. Do you remember any of Steelman's, or, forgive my pronunciation, what was his finding that it was a universal language by a universal a civilization of giants?
Maybe.
Okay. What was the what was the most profound thing he said that you got out of reading his book?
The translation of some of those stones are really, you could say, talking about extraterrestrials.
Okay, so, and that's again...
Action with flying objects.
When was the last time you were in Peru?
Peru was 2008 or 9.
When Tim and my film crew were down there for the True Legends, the first volume, first edition, when they got to the Bolivian border, right in the area of Punapunco, the interesting thing was a Bolivian military had moved in big time. And then I checked with some people, and they claim, do you know this or have you heard this, that an entire, if you will, underground city of pyramids and giants were found, and they didn't know what to deal with it, so the United States government sent their, quote, experts down there, and this was just a year ago. Have you heard that?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, so
I believe that there are such things there, definitely.
You know, you brought up Easter Island a moment ago. Easter Island and the Moai, you know, it didn't seem strange to you that no one ever dug down beyond just the head? You know, when they excavated that, I maintained that those were life-size. I maintained that the Nimrod statues are life-size. I maintain that the Karnak in Egypt are life-size, the pharaohs. I maintain all this stuff was life-size.
Steve, you mentioned the Easter Island. About 3 years ago, I was considering about the huge moais, and I asked my German friend, why don't we try to check over the Easter Island if there is something underground except the moais? And he did a scan over the area with his technology, and always behind, in a certain distance behind those moais, he found an underground cave, because he found bones, he found precious stones, and he found gold. That means definitely graves. Very deep underground, but you know also the excavations of some of the moais are going really deep under the earth. So, then I was remembering the book of Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian researcher. And I took his book from 1956. He did the first scientific expedition to the Easter Islands.
Right.
And on the page 5 or 6, he wrote, when he got friendship with some of the elders of the Easter Islands, they told him that their ancestors informed them or gave them the information. They told them, long time ago, they buried the kings here. So I was thinking, there is no gold digging on Easter Island. There is no precious stone digging on Easter Islands. Where comes the gold, and where are the precious stones coming? And that's for me one of the points of the reality of the continent Mu, because the elders told Thor Heyerdahl that long time ago they buried the kings here. And I'm sure if they really would do one of the excavations, we could give them exactly the location where some of the graves are. And they would do a deep excavation. I'm quite sure they might find giant skeletons.
Well, it's also, from our studies and from our talking to people, Klaus, they claim that there were tunnels. The Shinkana went all the way to Easter Island. In other words, even, sub-sea. And the tunnels we're talking about aren't the ones you see in Mexico where, the priests crawled through rocks to get to a certain grotto. We're talking about huge and quote-unquote giant tunnels. So that would make sense because obviously they'd want to keep their kings and all their things separated. What was also fascinating, Easter Island, they used to deny, but when they ran out of food, they ate each other out of existence, and I don't know if you know that, but there's even a curse in Easter Island that said, may your grandmother's flesh lie rotting between your teeth, And that was denied for a long time, but it was proven.
Yeah.
So the giants, and this is no pun intended, but the giants' appetite for human flesh basically consumed a lot of, if you will, indigenous people completely out of existence. But the tunnels under South America, are just, they're vast. And even in the United States, I remember Burroughs Cave, they claim it's phony. Well, somebody sure went to a whole lot of trouble. And not only that, but in the deserts of Utah, those things in Utah, the symbols and everything are just what we're talking about. They're the same things that you experience worldwide. That tells me there was a universal written language. And obviously, from the Tower of Babel. There had to be one before that whole thing happened. And it was interesting. After Babylon and the scrambling of the languages on earth, whether people want to believe or not, everything changed, and so did the writing, whether it was Sanskrit or, even pre-flood and pre-judgment of Babylon, the writing changed. And it seems like the writing changed at the same time the continents separated. Fascinating. Yeah. Well, at this point in your life and your career, what's the ultimate goal that you want? If you look back over your life, and I'd ask myself the same question, what do you want people to really come to grips with? Not just giants, not just ancient civilizations, but what do you, Klaus Dohna, want people to know, understand, and get a grasp on?
I think I would ask the science and all the people to learn and study more the past. What mistakes were done in the past that high civilizations were wiped out? Couldn't we learn from many of the old artifacts? Learning what they did, that they were wiped out, through what? Because look, Steve, if we continue treating the earth, the animals, everything like we do today, cutting down the jungles, everything. Look, we destroy our earth. We destroy the future of our children and of our grandchildren. We are responsible. And not only through atomic bombs, we might destroy the earth, but also our daily life. I'm so wonderful here in the Philippines. I tell you, you have natural food. You have people friendly. It's a wonderful country, and with a wonderful president.
Well, I'm glad to have reconnected with you, Klaus. And here's the thing. As we get closer, now that you've got, we've got each other's email address and stuff, if it works out for you and works out for our film crew that will be down in your area, I'd love for you to come along and, obviously as our guest. And I think you would appreciate it. And I won't say on this, interview with you what it's all up, but I think it will make Klaus Dohna go, wow, that is worth going to. It's beyond, it's one thing to deal with bones. It's another thing to deal with mummies. It's another thing to deal with artifacts. But it's a way other thing. Listen, when people see their first giant, the story of the pilot that flew the dead giant out of Afghanistan. We're getting reports at this point of live giants. And also, we're connected in now with the whole redo Fawcett's expedition. But I tell people this. I said, you don't realize, and I would like to thank you for your efforts, your cutting edge efforts. You've been on the cutting edge. And many of the things that I've written about, talked about, spoken about, always go back to you, even when I explain the Dr. Maldashev's story, which incidentally lines up with the Dulce alien war stories under Dulce, New Mexico, and the secret base there. Dr. Maldashev couldn't go beyond a certain point. The people there couldn't go beyond a certain point. When they did in Dulce, they were all wiped out. They were torn to pieces by the giants that are still alive under Dulce.
Yeah. You mentioned Mexico. A few years ago, I was the first one who received photos from artifacts where you have extraterrestrials on them and also UFOs and everything. And I was the one, you remember our past interviews, I told you I won't talk about extraterrestrials and UFOs as long as I don't have any information, real approval. And I got the first pictures, and I presented some of them together with Nassim Haramein in a conference in Germany. And I asked to the audience, no photos, no video, please. But someone did a video, and he was putting it into internet. You won't believe the shitstorm. Even the UFO freaks called us liar and everything. But the good thing, every bad thing has always a good thing. When this video was on internet, suddenly I got emails from Mexico, from other provinces, from indigenous people writing me and sending me photos. Look, we have such pieces already since centuries in our families. That means there is something going on in Mexico concerning those artifacts. We did, Nassim did age dating on 2 stone masks, which were glued with semi-precious stones with natural glue. And the age dating goes up to 8,000 and 14,000 years. And I can send you some photos of those pieces. When I saw first time the first pictures, I thought that's a hoax, because they were too good to be real. And in the meantime, we know those pieces are really real. And I was talking already 2003 after my visit to Teotihuacan. I got the information from the former director of the archaeological department, Nestor Paredes. He told me that he found in a tunnel between the Sun to the Moon pyramid, he found a stone box filled with liquid mercury. When I told this in some of the interviews, people were laughing about me and I was a liar and stupid crazy. But 2 years ago, the Mexican government announced that the research on an underground tunnel, which goes under the Quetzalcoatl pyramid in Teotihuacan, they also found liquid mercury. And you know the stories of the Vimanas
right.
in the Plata, that they were using mercury for the possibility to fly. And now they find thousands of artifacts showing UFOs engraved in stones and extraterrestrials, and they found liquid mercury. So what's going on? I mean, now I'm also interested in the stories, not only about giants and little people, but also about the stories if there might have been visitors from outside already in the past. And I'm quite sure that happened.
Well, I am too, and we're focusing our research on, stargates, and the stargates are worldwide the symbol of the spiral, the legends associated with the spiral, the aliens, quote, coming through the stargates. What's fascinating about the liquid mercury is the Indian government, when they went to, and I'm talking, India's got some very, very smart scientists, okay? And you know this, that they presented a paper from ancient Sanskrit, and they actually have the instruction books on how to build the Vimana, how to fly the Vimana, how to fuel the Vimana, and it all centers around mercury. And I'm not talking the planet, I'm talking liquid mercury. So it's fascinating because even when Hitler, I wrote a new book called Empire Beneath the Ice, How the Nazis Won World War III, and I'm sorry, World War II. Probably World War III too, but the point is that Hitler was using liquid mercury as also a propellant. Now, it's not just mercury you dump in a machine and you go. You've got to know how to use the, additional compounds. But isn't that fascinating? They were using liquid mercury for the bell, activating the bell. There was a special liquid, a mixture, but the main part was liquid mercury. And I think Joseph Farrell wrote about a book about the bell. And there is this liquid is called Xerox and the number. I don't remember now the number. But this liquid, I saw it in original. I saw it, a friend of mine in Bavaria, where the last train with very important things from Berlin to Prague disappeared.
before the end of the war, the transport list, there were many interesting things on this list. One, for example, one crystal skull, which was owned by Himmler and which was found by the SS archaeologist who was working to find more out about the Knight Templars and the Katharas. And there was also one box with this liquid Xerox, and he showed me a metal box, and it was written 1934, Vorsicht radioaktiv, which means attention radioactivity. Inside a box of lead, and inside that lead box one glass cylinder this size with this Xerox liquid. So it did exist, and they used it to activate the bell. So there are so many things going on now.
Well, listen, when you have time, just, Skype Tim and say, let's do something. But I would like to, I'll keep you in the loop when we're coming to your area. Okay. And maybe meet. And so, listen, Klaus, thank you. It's nice to talk to you. And boy, I told Klaus, ladies and gentlemen, before we connected, that there have been real people that have kept us from contacting each other. And I think one of the last radio interviews you did, you knew you were having a problem too. I think you said, Steve, people are messing with me. You didn't say messing, but they're causing me some problems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't mind. Yeah. If you don't have fear, your enemies cannot attack you.
Right.
Because you don't go on the same frequency. So everything fine. Sorry for my bad English, but it was 5:30 when we started.
Oh.
And that's not the best time to do an interview early morning.
Yeah, we won't do that again. I just came in. I came into it, and Tim said that we were going to do it, and I was going, I think they're 18 hours ahead. Well, Klaus, thank you so much.
I thank you very much.
Okay.
And greetings to all your listeners, and hopefully we can see each other one day, really.
Really soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.